Start this practice, all you need to do is carve out 10-15 minutes. Feet are going to be about hip width apart. Fingertips are going to start on the pubic bone, and we're going to start with some vertical oscillations. To do this, I'm going to reach my pubic bone as far forward as I can, and then far back as I can. And I'm going to stay with this point for about 10 movements forward and back. So begin by reaching that point without engaging other points. So right now we're moving the hip, and for me this is the first joint of the spine. Look to create an extra millimeter or two here and there, but never at the cost of moving other parts of the spine. So it's an isolated movement. Now moving up to the second point, that's halfway between the pubic bone and the belly button. The bladder point, again, 2 fingers on that point. This time, we're reaching that point as far back as we can, and that point as far forward as we can. Notice that there's a slight difference in the shape, and right now the tailbone tucks slightly because the movement of the spine is happening at that joint, no longer at the hip. Okay? So for about 10 reps, forward and back. Try and keep the shoulders relaxed. Disassociate any other tension that might be occurring in the body. Some of you that might be in the face, in the hands, the shoulders. It might even be in your breath. So to really try and disassociate the tension you might be experiencing elsewhere and focus in on the point. Now moving up to the belly button, continuing the practice. Our aim with this is to have each point feel different from the previous point. Mostly what we end up experiencing with our spine is that we will perform different tasks but use the same point of the spine. And generally I'll see anywhere between 2 and 4 points being used, as opposed to the just over 30 vertebrae that there is in the spine. Each of those can move independently of each other. So what we're looking to do here is restore some of the function in some of the points least used. Next point is going to be halfway between the belly button and the sternum, what we call the soft belly. So this one here, you'll start to notice that you might start to collect a little bit of the rib cage, but definitely notice now that the hips are no longer moving. Now, my shoulders might move forward and back slightly, but that's only as a consequence of this part of my spine moving. I'm not driving the movement with my shoulders. I'm trying to make the movement, or at least the intention of the movement, is on the spine. And with that, it will slowly collect some natural counterbalancing in the shoulders, and that's okay. As long as that's not happening with tension, we're in a good place. Again, try and find that extra millimeter of movement or that extra millimeter of accuracy. Next point's the base of the sternum, so move your fingers up slightly. Again, try and make this point feel different from the last point. Next point's going to be the midway point between the bottom of the neck and the base of the sternum. It's the middle of the chest, so the hard center of your chest. Again, the shoulders might get collected into the movement, but they're not driving the movement. Really try and exercise some patience with this practice. Like, don't be surprised if you go to move a point and it doesn't move. Our brain will often go through a process called movement amnesia when we don't move our body at a particular point or in a particular way. So it can take a little while to learn to articulate a joint because the brain has to remap the body. So even if a point doesn't feel like it's moving that much, the principle I follow with this one here is that mass follows energy. And so thought is an example of energy, intention is an example of energy. So you might be thinking that you're moving something, or you might have the intention to move something first, irrespective of whether it moves or not. And that's okay, because that's step one. Step two is when you start to notice and feel movement in that particular area starting to happen. But it always starts with the idea of it moving in the first place. Next point, very top of the chest. So just below the sort of voice box, bottom of the larynx. It's still on the chest itself. Maybe this is sort of for you the first or the second rib. And again, see if you can move it in ways that feel different from the previous point. Next point is right on the Adam's apple, voice box itself. So now we're looking to try and reach that point forward and then reach that point back. Notice you might get a little sway in your body to sort of assist the movement, and that's okay. But do your best to just be moving from that point only. The sway sort of sets up a need to move the neck and the head, because it forms a bit of counterbalance. I generally do less on these joints up here just because they're smaller and they fatigue. And then the last one is the very last joint in the spine. We're just going to go forward and back with the neck, protrusion and retraction. Protrusion. So all these oscillations are in the sagittal plane, which means forward and back. And so now we're going to do 2 spinal waves in that plane. The first one is going to be a tail-led wave. To do this, you're going to slouch. So you give yourself bad posture. Chin down, relaxed, tailbone tucked. From here, I'm going to take my kneecaps forward, my pubic bone forward, my bladder forward, my stomach forward, my chest forward, my upper chest, my head, my neck. Once I've extended this position, I take my tailbone back and I'm in this extended position. And then one vertebrae at a time, I'm looking to collapse back into and draw back into the slouch position. So, if this is difficult and you can't do it freestanding, then on a wall will work as well. Aiming to keep one part of your spine on the wall at any particular point in time. So I'm going to rise up the wall, in this case the pole, tailbone touches, one vertebrae at a time, slouching back into position, one vertebrae at a time, peeling off the pole. Now Now with this part of the practice, you'll often be faced with parts of the movement that aren't being collected into the shaping, but you ought to do your best to try and find where they are and include them in the wave. We'll continue for about another 30 seconds. Notice that it's got like a snaking-like quality. And the reason it's nice to have a spine that can do this is so that not only do we understand how to brace the spine and have it strong for picking up a heavy object, but we also have a soft and fluid spine for being able to move and articulate in interesting ways. Whether that's reaching for something under a table, dancing, and generally just feeling more alive in your spine. Okay, the next one's a head-led wave. So to do this one, we're going to start by leading with the head. We start in that slouch position. This time I'm going to take my head down and I take myself right through that bad posture-like shape. And then one vertebrae at a time, I'm looking to extend my spine up, back, and around, and repeating the wave. With the freestanding, one way I think of it is like I'm trying to draw a circle with my nose, and I'm allowing the rest of my body to follow segmentally. If that feels too challenging, then you can use your wall or your pole, and need to stand a little ways back from it. But slouching down, first point is forehead, nose, chin, chest, belly, hips, and then repeat. There's also a subsequent pulling off of a point. So as I take my nose on, I'm starting to pull my forehead off. As I take my chin, I'm pulling my nose off. As I pull or push in my chest, I'm pulling my chin off, and so on. To create the wave. Let's go for about another 30 seconds. Moving the spine in this way can also be a therapeutic tool to adjust your spine rather than seeing a physio or a chiropractor or a masseuse. This might be a way to get some things cracking, popping, readjusting, realigning, as well as loosening up, softening, massaging, putting more blood into areas you wouldn't normally have blood flow so freely. My suggestion with this practice would be to put on some weird music, get slinky. Best time of day to do this one is right at the very start. I often do it when I'm having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning to get the day going. Next one in this series, we'll be focusing on the frontal plane and we'll be moving from side to side. All the best with it.